In the heart of Britain, where rolling green hills meet rugged coastlines, and the sea whispers tales of seafaring days gone by, there lies a culinary tradition as iconic as the red telephone boxes and double-decker buses. This is the story of the nation's beloved dish, fish and chips. A simple, hearty meal that has transcended time, social class, and even war. Fish and chips holds a unique place in British culture, representing not just food, but a national identity. Welcome to the story of Britain's Friday favourite. Britain's Friday favourites. Our journey begins in the mid-19th century, at the height of the Industrial Revolution, when the landscape of Britain was undergoing profound transformation. Cities were growing, factories were rising, and a working-class population was rapidly expanding. In this era of industry and change, there was a need for affordable, filling, and portable food to feed the laborious of Britain's burgeoning urban centres. Fish and chips emerged as the answer, and in many ways, it was the perfect marriage of necessity, geography, and innovation. While the pairing of fried fish and potatoes seems almost destined, the origins of each component tell their own fascinating stories. Fried fish arrived on British shores via Jewish immigrants from Spain and Portugal in the 17th century. Known as pescado frito, this method of coating fish in flour and frying it was adopted by Jewish communities in Britain, particularly in London's East End, where it quickly gained popularity. The crispy, golden fish was an ideal street food, sold on market stalls wrapped in paper and eaten on the go. The humble potato, meanwhile, had been introduced to Europe from the Americas in the 16th century. Initially viewed with suspicion, it eventually became a staple crop across the continent, including Britain. But it wasn't until the late 18th century that fried potatoes made their appearance in Britain, possibly inspired by the French or Belgian tradition of frites. Potatoes, cheap and abundant, became the perfect accompaniment to fried fish, forming a meal that was not only delicious but also affordable for Britain's working class. And so, fish and chips were born, a culinary duo that would soon take the nation by storm. By the 1860s, the first fish and chip shops, or chippies as they would come to be known, began popping up in industrial cities like London and Manchester. These humble establishments were often little more than wooden shacks or basement kitchens, where fish, fresh from the nearby coasts, was fried to perfection in bubbling cauldrons of fat. The chips, cut thick from hearty potatoes, were fried until golden and served alongside the fish in greaseproof paper, wrapped up for easy takeaway. The rise of the railways played a crucial role in the spread of fish and chips across Britain. The railroads allowed fresh fish to be transported quickly from coastal fishing towns to the urban centres where the demand for this new street food was growing. Cities like Grimsby and Whitby became hubs of the fish trade, their catches feeding the burgeoning appetite for fried fish in Britain's rapidly expanding cities. At the heart of every good fish and chip meal is the fish itself, and traditionally, two species reign supreme, cod and haddock. Cod, with its mild flavour and flaky white flesh, became the preferred choice in the southern parts of England, while haddock, slightly sweeter and firmer, found favour in the northern regions. These cold-water fish, abundant in the North Sea, became the stars of Britain's fish and chip shops, and remain so to this day. But the story of fish and chips is not just about food, it's about people. It is a story deeply intertwined with the lives of Britain's working-class communities. Fish and chips provided a cheap, nutritious meal during a time when access to food was limited for many. For factory workers, miners, and labourers, it was the perfect meal to refuel after a long day of hard work. By the late 19th century, fish and chips had become a staple in the British diet, and by the early 20th century, it was an institution. In fact, during the darkest days of World War I and World War II, fish and chips played an essential role in keeping morale high on the home front. Unlike many other foodstuffs, which were heavily rationed, fish and chips remained available, providing a comforting and familiar meal to a war-weary population. Winston Churchill himself is said to have called fish and chips the good companions, recognizing their role in keeping the nation fed and united during times of strife. As we move through the decades, fish and chips remained a beloved tradition, but like all things, it evolved. The frying methods and ingredients changed over time. In the early days, the fish was often fried in beef dripping, giving it a distinctive, rich flavor. However, as health consciousness grew, many chip shops transitioned to using vegetable oils, creating a lighter, crisper batter. Some regions still fiercely defend their use of dripping, particularly in the north, where tradition runs deep. One cannot talk about fish and chips without mentioning the condiments, those essential sidekicks that complete the meal. In different parts of the country, the accompaniments vary, reflecting regional preferences and cultural quirks. In London and the South, it's common to find fish and chips served with a generous splash of malt vinegar and a sprinkling of salt. In the North, however, the dish is often paired with mushy peas, a thick, bright green mash of rehydrated peas that adds a touch of sweetness to balance the savory fried fish. And then, of course, there is the iconic tartar sauce, a tangy, creamy blend of mayonnaise, capers, and pickles that has become a classic dipping option for many. As the years passed, fish and chips remained a constant in an ever-changing world. But the chippies of old began to modernize. Neon signs, stainless steel counters, and electric fryers replaced the old wooden stools and coal-fueled vats. And yet, despite these changes, the essence of fish and chips remained the same, a simple, satisfying meal enjoyed by all walks of life, from blue-collar workers to royalty. Today, fish and chips face new challenges and opportunities in the 21st century. With concerns about sustainability, many fish and chip shops have turned to sourcing certified sustainable seafood to ensure that future generations can continue to enjoy the dish. Cod, once the undisputed king of the fish and chip world, has faced declining stocks, leading many shops to promote alternatives like pollock, coley, and hake. These efforts reflect the growing awareness of environmental responsibility within the industry, ensuring that fish and chips remain not only a beloved meal but also an ethical one. And yet, the charm of fish and chips endures. Whether enjoyed in a seaside town where the salt of the sea mingles with the smell of frying fish, or on a bustling city street, wrapped in paper and eaten with wooden forks, fish and chips continues to be a dish that transcends time and class. It is a food that brings people together, evoking memories of childhood trips to the local chippy, family picnics by the sea, and late-night suppers after a night out with friends. In the grand tapestry of British culinary history, fish and chips holds a unique place, a dish that has weathered the storms of time, evolving yet remaining true to its roots. It is a reminder that sometimes, the simplest foods are the ones that resonate the most, not just with our taste buds, but with our hearts. And so, as we savor each crispy, golden bite, we are reminded of the legacy of fish and chips, a legacy that tells the story of Britain itself, its people, its resilience, and its unyielding love for good, honest food. This is the story of Britain's Friday a favorite, a story as enduring as the nation it feeds. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution.